any relationship, there will be frightening spells in which your feelings of love seem to dry up. And when that happens, you must remember that the essence of marriage is that it is a covenant, a commitment, a promise, a future love. So what do? You do the acts of love despite your lack of feeling. You may not feel tender, sympathetic, and eager to please, but in your actions you must be tender, understanding, forgiving, and helpful. And if you do that, as time goes on, you will not only get through the dry spells, but they will become less frequent and deep. And you will become more constant in your feelings. This is what can help you decide to love. This, I think, one little part of what Christ meant by saying that a thing will not really live unless it first dies. It is simply no good trying to keep any thrill. That is the very worst thing you could do. Let the thrill go. Let it die away. Go on through that period of death into the quieter interests and happiness that follow, and you'll find that you are living in a world of new thrills all the time. How is this transformation possible? I think it may happen something like this. When we first are attracted to someone, we think, I want it to stay like this. I don't want to lose this passion. But as we have said, the ego rush cannot be sustained and cannot take you very far down the road of learning to love the person you really married. To use Lewis's metaphor, you must let this more immature incarnation of your love die. If it is to rise again and live, you must stick to your commitment to act and serve and love, especially when you don't feel much delight and attraction to your spouse. And the more you do that, slowly but surely, you will find the more ego-heavy attraction being transformed into a love that is more characterized by a humble, amazed reception and appreciation of the other person. The love you will grow into will be wiser, richer, deeper, less variable. Sadly, many people never let this happen because they have accepted the culture's definition of marriage, and when the thrill wears off, they feel it is time for a change. This view of things leaves married people very vulnerable to affairs, since it is quite natural that you will meet others who are attractive, and who will hold out the promise of getting the thrill back that was there in the beginning of your relationship with your spouse. Another notion we get from the novel and plays is that falling in love is something quite irresistible, something that just happens to one, like measles. and because they believe that some married people grow up the sponge. Wait, I read that wrong. And because they believe this, some married people throw up the sponge and give it in when they find themselves attracted by a new acquaintance. But it is not very largely in our choice whether this love shall or shall not turn into what we call being in love. No doubt, if our minds are full of novels and plays and sentimental songs, and our bodies full of alcohol, we shall turn any love we feel into a kind of love. Just as if you have a rut in your path, all the rain water will run into that rut, and if you wear blue spectacles, everything you see will turn blue. But that will be our own fault. So when someone says, I don't need a piece of paper to show love, you might say, yes, you do. If you love the way the Bible describes the love of two people who want to share their lives together, you should have no problem making a legal, permanent, exclusive commitment. The bargain. In ancient times, there was bride price. A prospective husband came to the father of a woman and offered him a certain sum, depending on factors such as the woman's beauty and the size of her inheritance. We see that old practice say, oh, how awful that people did that. Today, however, we have moved beyond that, and because we are so more democratic, men and women do it now to one another. We look at men and women sizing each other up and say, she's on the market, he got a bad deal there, and how did she ever fall for that sales pitch? These offhanded comments are telling. We tend to size up potential partners as to their assets and deficits, and in the end we feel that we want to marry this person because he or she brings a lot to the table for us. It is almost impossible not to think the terms of how much I'm putting into marriage and how much my spouse is putting in. And if we are getting out the relationship as much, or a bit more, we secretly hope that we put in, then we are happy. But as time goes on, we come to see our spouse's flaws, and if those flaws persist and we find that we are not getting out of marriage as much as we had hoped for when we made our initial investment, then we begin to do what anyone in a business does. If revenues are down, cut expenditures. And so if my wife is not being the wife she ought to be, I simply will not put in the effort to be a husband I used to be. It seems perfectly fair. She's not doing this like she used to. So why then should I do that? If I'm not getting the same value, I don't need to put in as much into this. You tell yourself at some semi-conscious level that this behavior is only fair and equitable, but it's really a form of revenge. This is how you justify your withdrawal in your mind, but of course your spouse doesn't see it quite that way. If my wife sees me being emotionally more remote, not being as active in serving her needs or the needs of the family, she will feel warranted to dial back her own involvement and commitment to me. The less you feel loved, the less you act loving, the less you feel loving, and so you both spiral down and down. Think for a moment how different a parent's relationship is with a child. If you have a child, you will find that the biblical pattern of love is forced on you. Your new child is the neediest human being you have ever met. She needs your care every second of the day, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You make enormous sacrifices in your life, and yet the child, for a very long time, gives you nothing in return. And while later the child can give you love and respect, never does she give you anything like what you have given her. Often, older children go through long stretches during which they rebel and fall apart and need enormous investment from you, and again give you nothing in return. But at every turn, whether or not they are giving to you, you give to them. After 18 years of this, even if your child is an adult, even if your child is an unattractive person to everyone else, you can't help love her dearly. Why? Because you've been forced to operate on biblical pattern. You've had to do the actions of love regardless of your feelings, and therefore now you have deep feelings of love for your child, however lovable she is or not. It is not surprising, then, that after children leave home, many marriages fall apart. Why? Because while the parents treated their relationship with their children as a covenant relationship, performing the actions of love until their feelings strengthened, they treated their marriage as a consumer relationship and withdrew their actions of love when they weren't having the feelings. As a result, after 2 decades, their marriages were empty, while their love for their children remained strong. He stayed. Many people hear this and say, I'm sorry, I can't give love if I don't feel it. I can't fake it. That's too mechanical for me. I can understand that reaction, but Paul doesn't simply call us to a naked action. He commands us to think as we act. Husband, loves your wife just as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her. This means we say to ourselves something like this: well, when Jesus looked down from the cross, he didn't think, I'm giving myself to you because you are so attractive to me. No, he was in agony, and he looked down at us, denying him, abandoning him, and betraying him. And in the greatest act of love in history, he stayed. He said, Father, forgive them. They don't know what they are doing. He loved us not because we were lovely to him, but to make us lovely. This is why I'm going to love my spouse. Speak to your heart like that, and then fulfill the promises you made on your wedding day. Chapter 4.